The coalition announces the release of a group of Houthi prisoners as part of implementing the United Nations mediated truce. Suspected Al-Qaeda gunmen attack security headquarters in El Dola and kill senior military officials. Despite hardship of the war, displaced people in Ma'rib Governorate insist to celebrate Eid al-Fitr. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rushan Fuad. The UN envoy to Yemen, Hans Grunberg, has welcomed the release of Houthi detainees by the coalition. He further urged the Yemeni parties to agree on the details of the release so that the Yemeni families may reunite as soon as possible. In a unilateral move, the coalition has announced yesterday a release of more than 120 Houthi prisoners. According to the coalition, this comes as an initiative to build confidence between warring parties. The following report has more details.
The prisoner exchange is a purely humanitarian file through which it was hoped that confidence-building measures in the peace process would be strengthened, but the Houthi militia's selective use and its demand to release specific names, according to tribal or other criteria, stopped a real breakthrough in this file since the signing of the Sweden agreement more than 3 years ago. Houthis' handling of the recent humanitarian initiative of Saudi Arabia to release more than 160 militia prisoners reflects the Houthis' selectivity, as they refused to receive them in Sana'a except for 9, of whom are 5 prisoners and 4 kidnapped, where they confirmed through a statement that the rest are not prisoners of war, but kidnappers of African nationalities. The UN envoy to Yemen, Hans Grunberg, praised the Saudi humanitarian initiative represented in the release of more than 160 Houthis and called for this initiative to represent a step to speed up the implementation of what was agreed in the prisoner file within the Sweden agreement and other agreements concluded with the Houthi group in this humanitarian file. The Supervisory Committee for the Exchange of Prisoners and Abductees of the government highly valued the humanitarian initiative of Saudi Arabia, calling on the Houthis to deal with it positively. It's noteworthy that the most prominent breakthrough in the prisoner exchange file was the release of more than 1,000 prisoners and detainees in mid-October of the year 2020 within 11 flights managed and supervised by the International Committee of the Red Cross inside and outside 5 cities between Yemen and Saudi Arabia, and since late March, Yemenis have been anticipating the largest exchange deal prisoners between the Yemeni government and the Houthis, which included more than 2,200 people under the agreement that was completed under the auspices of the UN Envoy's office, including Nasser Mansour, the brother of the former Yemeni president, his former defense minister Mahmoud al-Subaihi, and 2 relatives of the late President Ali Abdullah Saleh. But the Houthi evasion was the master of the situation. The deal reflects that the Houthi inflexibility has always stood as a stumbling block in the way of peace building in Yemen.
Government forces announced the shooting down of Houthi drones west of Saada. The Monitoring and Reconnaissance Unit in the 3rd Brigade monitored the flight of Houthi attack drones. They pointed out that the air defense targeted and shot it down as soon as it received the operational notification. The Houthi militia launched summer camps to recruit children. The Houthi militia began organizing its regular summer camps under the slogan Science and Jihad from various schools and mosques. Educational sources confirmed that the militia are implementing an intensified propaganda through radio stations for the camp. The government forces targeted Houthi vehicles while shooting south of Ma'rib. A field military source confirmed that the artillery targeting has resulted in direct casualties on the ranks of the militia. This came after the government forces monitored an intense flight of the militia's drones in the same front. Despite hardship of the war, displaced people in Ma'rib insisted on celebrating the rituals of Eid al-Fitr amid joyous atmosphere. Main streets of the city have turned to be portrayed depicting the happy moments of those war affected people and whose lives have been shattered by this ongoing conflict. This report has more details.
During the days of Eid al-Fitr, the streets of the city of Ma'rib turned into tourist parks where hundreds of thousands of citizens crowded to spend the Eid vacation. As the city lacked gardens and parks, the streets were crowded with a great number of displaced people who visited from various governorates of the country.
The governorate is populated with citizens and internally displaced people in light of Eid, the war and the siege. There are no available amusement spots or parks for people to visit. Main streets are the only viable spot for people to hang out.
Despite the war and siege, our Eid celebrations are still going strong. May justice prevail.
Joy pervaded the streets of Ma'rib as fathers and mothers performed joyous Eid rituals along with their children. Despite the suffering and displacement people experience, they cling to whatever remnants of joy they can scrounge up through unity and family.
The Eid atmosphere in Ma'rib is great. The joy is evident on people's faces, especially children. The inauguration of the Presidential Council has filled us with hope that the coming days will be more stable.
Displaced people's appearance during the blessed Eid al-Fitr represents social and cultural diversity in Ma'rib. The IDPs refuse to submit to the enemies of the Republic, banding together to renounce sectarianism and injustice.
The Republic is based in Ma'rib, which is a cultural site. The governorate has embraced people from all walks of life and all classes. This unity can only strengthen our community.
The Houthi militia may have breached the truce multiple times, but we aren't fazed, and we reject their intrusion.
The joy of Eid among the citizens of Ma'rib mixed with the hope that accompanied the formation of the Presidential Council. Displaced people held out hope for the restoration of state institutions amid Houthi efforts to undermine peace opportunities and military escalations on various fighting fronts. Yemenis must resolve to rid their country of intrusive sabotage efforts in the region.
Amid official and popular condemnation, martyrs of Al-Dala and Ka'taba were buried. The martyrs were killed as a result of clashes with armed elements affiliated with Al-Qaeda group. Their bodies were buried in the cemetery of Al-Dala, Al-Abbari and Ka'taba after the funeral procession moved from Al-Nasser Hospital. The international community has voiced concerns over the potential threat of the aging oil tanker Safer, despite the UN and the US efforts in terms of resolving this issue. To avoid the consequences of such imminent disaster, no real progress has been achieved so far. This report has more details.
The United States of America has renewed its warning of the catastrophic danger posed by Safer oil tanker which threatened to collapse off the port of Ras Isa on the Red Sea, with the Houthi militia continuing refusal for the arrival of a UN team to maintain and unload it. The Safer tanker still worries the international community about the possibility of a leak or explosion, as the tank contains more than 1,100,000 barrels, which will affect the marine environment in the Red Sea, and most importantly, it would affect one of the vital international shipping lanes, which is Bab el-Mandab. The United States, through its special envoy to Yemen, noted that the tank poses a serious economic and environmental threat to the Red Sea and beyond, and that the international community still has an opportunity to avoid a catastrophic spill. The UN plan confirmed that it needs $144 million to solve Safer crisis, and the report revealed a meeting of donors with the aim of mobilizing the necessary support for the process of the tanker crisis, which will be hosted by Netherlands on May 11th. According to the UN Coordinator for Humanitarian Affairs, the UN plan aims for a long-term replacement vessel of the tanker during a target period of 18 months. Then a 4-month emergency operation will be carried out by a global rescue company with the aim of eliminating the immediate threat and transferring the oil to a safe temporary vessel. The UN plan reflects that the Yemeni conflict, which created the worst humanitarian disaster in the world and the greatest imminent environmental threat, represented by the safer tanker, has also created a fertile ground for international profit, as it is the case with the donor conferences that wasted about $20 billion without a tangible effect, and it has renewed the fear of scenario repetition with the time bomb of the safer tanker.
Coming next. In Lahj, the railway pond is a historical monument since 100 years.
احنا نزحنا للمخيم ذا قدام 3 سنوات ونزحنا من الحرب، وقعت بيننا عندنا في القرية اشتباكات عنيفة. الأمان مش أمان الحرب، الأمان إنك معك بر في بيتك، معك مصروف، تكون مأمن نفسك داخل بيتك أنت وعيالك. القوة خلانا نفكر كثير، ما يكون البر موجود وكل شيء موجود، ترقد وأنت آمن مرتاح. ما يكون ما فيش، من أن ترقد؟
Welcome back. Zayed Park, located on some mountain in Taiz, has been the only social outlet for people in the city, especially with the blockade imposed by Houthi militia on the government since 2015. Despite its terrible state, people still find it the best and safest resort for them and their families. This report has more details.
Almost every corner of Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan Park, which occupies a tourist site at the top of Mountain Sabr, is full of visitors. The park has become a destination for many and most families who went to it in Eid, despite the massive destruction that has affected it.
Zayed Park is destroyed, and none should come here, but because of the war, people have nowhere else to go to have fun with their children except coming to this park, and we hope by Eid next year the siege is lifted from Taiz.
I came with my siblings and my friends to play here in the park and to enjoy the joy of Eid and to have fun at the playground.
Mount Sabr became safe for everyone to be here, and it enjoys beautiful scenery.
On the side that overlooks the city, visitors, individuals and groups cover the terrace and sidewalks of the streets in a scene where they spend beautiful Eid times. Mountain Sabr and the Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Park remain an outlet for citizens despite the dangers and costs amid the war and siege. Yet people in Yemen see good and peace.
The governor of Taiz held a meeting in the city of El Turba to discuss the supply of the power station provided to Makha. The meeting was held with the support of Brigadier General and Vice Chairman of the PLC. The meeting was attended by the director of the company operating the power plant in Makha, and he came out with an agreement on the main points. Social figures and activists in Lahj have complained the power turned off in Turban district. Residents of 26 residential villages suffered from power outages for several hours in light of the high temperature during the summer. Elderly, sick, children and women were also suffering amid silence of concerned sources. The railway pond is an important monument in Lahj Governorate. It dates back to the era of the British colony. It was part of a big project aimed at linking El Dala to Aden main railway, but did not materialize. This report has more details.
The railway pond in Al-Khaddad Lahj has been around for over a millennium. Qatar Pond, or what was known formerly as the railway in the time of the British colonization, has now become a withered husk of what it once was. The pond, estranged from civilization, has dried up and no longer bears resemblance to the historical cultural pit stop of the past.
This pond is historic and it bore great historical value in the age of Abdaliya Sultanate. Unfortunately, it has grown withered and neglected, and no one has borne the responsibility of maintaining this pond state. People don't care if essential landmarks such as this pond face eradication.
Awad Ahmed Musayman regularly visits this pond for upkeep, staving away people's attempts at demolishing a historical witness to Yemen's railway project. The concept of the railway, which blazed through Al-Khaddad region, was proposed in 1910, implemented in 1919, and scratched in 1929.
Many people know about the railway pond, but unaware of its historical significance. It is a live testimony of the historical relations between Lahj Sultanate and Aden. It was found to link the railway in Aden to Ad-Dala, but the project was opposed by some in the British government.
The pond was established to transport fresh water to the capital Aden. Next to it, a well was built to pump water before supplying it to the train cars from the pond. The construction of the pond and the inner walls of the well reveal a clear harmony in which the same mountain stones were used. Those stones also line some of the Sultan's palaces in Al-Hota.
The pond was built along with a water well to supply ships with drinking water. Although some areas in Aden contain drinking water, but that water was relatively salty. The structure of the pond is similar to Aden Underground.
Today, the railway pond is the last landmark of a historical era in southern Yemen, and despite its value, it is now at the mercy of some of those who were deceived by their ignorance of its place in Yemen history.
Economic sources revealed that Houthi militia imposed taxes on poultry entering the capital Sana'a. The taxes have exceeded 300% after it was only 10 riyals in 2010. The sources reported the militia collected 600 million Yemeni riyals per day to about 2 million live and frozen chickens to Sana'a only. The customs duties on poultry have also caused a significant increase in their prices in the market. Local sources in Aden confirmed the high prices of meals in many restaurants during Eid. The price of meal rose to 12,000 riyals after its price before Eid was only 1,000 riyals. Citizens said that these prices were not recorded by restaurants in light of the crisis of the Yemeni riyal collapse. Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The coalition announces the release of a group of Houthi prisoners as part of implementing the United Nations mediated truce. Suspected Al-Qaeda gunmen attack security headquarters in El Dawla and kill senior military officials. Despite hardship of the war, displaced people in Maghreb Governorate insist to celebrate Eid al-Fitr. This is the end of the news. For more, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Yemen Today English. It was Roshan Fouad. Thank you for watching.